Okay, let's destroy a building. The technique for this building destruction is actually really simple and surprisingly easy. The way it works is just a lot of different components layered together. We've got a bunch of buildings, a bunch of different smoke simulations, which are actually really simple to set up because I'm using a free download. And then we've got small effects like little explosions, particles coming off the building, and additional things like camera shake and a nice lighting volume for dust in the air. So when all that's stacked together, you get a really nice final result. So let's see how it's done. Okay, to make a building, the steps are pretty simple. First, you're gonna model your building in two parts. So make the middle of the building. You can follow a reference and make one better than this one I just made, which is nothing. And then you're gonna make the detail part. So let's say this is the inner part of the building. There we go. And then we'll make the details. And the reason it's two pieces is so we can have two different materials, which will be important later. Not totally necessary, but it will make things easier. Say this is the final building you've made. Now, we'll group everything into two parts. We'll have detail, which will be everything out here, all these detail bits. So I'll just join those into an object, and then we've got the inside, which is also its one object. So that. Now what you need to do next is to remesh this. We're going to use the displace modifier later to mess up the geometry and make it all squiggled. So that won't work very well on perfect, clean mesh like this with only these huge faces. It needs to have a lot of little faces. So to do that, we're going to remesh the pieces. So to remesh, you just go here, scroll down here in this little green triangle, the data tab, open up remesh and change this to maybe 0.05, and then hit remesh. It'll load a minute, and then you see if I go into edit mode, I've now got millions of little faces, which is perfect. That's perfect. Since this is really cubic shape, it should work pretty well with voxel remesh, and it shouldn't look too weird. You can see it still has square corners and stuff. A round shape would look much messier, so try to stick to square shapes for your buildings. Alright, next, you remesh the detail bit. So click remesh on that too. And you can see it messed up the shape a little bit right here, but it's not really worth worrying about. It seems to have done a fine job. You can see if I tab into edit mode, millions of tiny faces. Just how I wanted. Actually, they seem a little off. If I undo that, maybe if I apply all transforms and do it again. I see, that's much nicer. It's given much cleaner squares. Still not as fine, so I'm going to undo it one more time. And I've got to change it to 0.05. There we go. Okay, much better. Now, the two parts are ready to have materials. So on this one, let's see materials. For the sake of example, we'll put on this one a red. So the details are going to be one color, like maybe gray. I used a concrete gray in the example, so let's say I put a gray concrete material on all of this, and then on here, this part you can focus on and actually texture it with effort. Like you'll use building colors, texture it with, a picture of a building, and work on that. To do that, you can just go to shading here, add an image texture, go to, let's open up an image. Okay, and in here we just open up a picture of a building, and then go back, go to UV editing, and here switch this to texture, so you can see the texture on the object. Yeah, so let's just open the texture over here, reference, and then you just start projecting faces out onto the map. Select those, hit U, unwrap, and we'll see them right there. Then you position them in a reasonable manner. They've got some windows, so just do that all around. Very basic technique here. You can, model stuff to match these details if you want. Like, for example, I could select some of these and now there's that. Whatever. So yeah, once you've got that, you make your whole building that way. The next step after that is to animate the building falling. So let's go see how that is done. The next step is to animate the building falling. This is my final building. I obviously put more work into it than the tutorial one. But still, as you can see, it's just extremely simple geometry, nothing really complicated at all. And the texture is also very simple. I was counting on the fact that it was going to be kind of blurry. For the animation, I'll show you what I've got with mine here. You just want it to move slowly down. So at first, I'm giving it a bit of blank time here in the beginning where nothing happens. That's where we're going to show those little explosive charges firing all over the building. Then after that, I've made it move slowly downward, straight down. So it's going to move straight downward, and it's going to tilt a little bit to one side. Just like that. So it's very simple. I've got the building's origin down at the bottom so I can rotate it from there. And that is the whole collapsing motion of the building. I'll just play through it so you can watch the whole thing. It's going to move straight down. First just animate it moving downwards and then animate it rotating a little bit. Super simple. Okay, so after that, you're going to need to add a displace modifier. The displace modifier is going to let us cheat it looking broken. So add a new modifier, displace, and then new texture. Go into texture settings, make it a marble, Rony crackle, and then there's customization to be done. I'll leave the size on 2 for now. There's an easy way to control your texture. Just add in a cube, somewhere you can see. I can't see mine. Oh, it's up in space. My building may be a little bit small out of scale. It might help if you made it the correct scale. Who knows? I did this so the smoke simulation wouldn't have to be gigantic. Okay. Now in here, coordinates, object. I can just click my cube. Now I've got full control of the texture. Scale it up like that. And you can even rotate it to whatever you want. You'll just hide this cube later, or you could use an empty, which would be automatically invisible. Okay. Now you turn the strength down and you see good, busted, good, busted. So as when the strength is turned up like this, actually I think it looks better as negative, looks more damaged. And as the building moves, you see the shape stays as it is, which really helps with the destroyed looking effect right there. See how that looks broken because of the way it ripples through. So to do that, we want it to look normal about here, because we'll imagine the bottom is just exploding away and the top is falling down. This will be covered by smoke. So right around here we want to start looking damaged. So to do that we just keyframe this. So like here at the end, it will be 100% destroyed. Go back right around here and put this to 0. Okay, now as we watch, it's destroyed as it falls down, which is great. And you might want that to be earlier or whatever, so that's going to take a lot of customization. But just tweak it, and eventually you'll get it how you like. Also, a quick note, if you want to add a sign to your building, like an advertisement, just get a plane, put a sign on it, and then just parent it to the falling building, and it'll fall down out of sight before the displacement happens, so you won't even have to worry about destroying it. You can just stick a sign on it and it will go down with the building. You can see it's just parented to my building here. Perfect. Okay, next let's add particles. So get a cube. Oh, I think mine's way up there again. Yeah, go to cube and make it into a piece of rubble. So, I don't know, put in an edge loop. Scale, move, rotate, looking rubbly. Okay. Oh, that's bad geometry. Okay, shocking, but this will be great for a piece of rubble. Now that piece of rubble, just name it rubble. Great. Click here, add a new particle system, and then here's the settings you need. I just did 500. Make sure you turn on rotation, randomize. Make sure you turn on render in here, change it to object, pick your rubble object, and then you can adjust the scale and randomize the scale right here. And once you've done that, you'll have and also make sure that they start right around when the explosive charges are going to fire, which for me is around frame 50. So it's going to fire explosive charges, bits of rubble will start falling. So frames start at 50, and then they can end right whenever, like right here, because you're not going to see the building anymore. So yeah, and then you've got it. You can add more if you want, but I think just a few is probably more realistic. Now let's make the little bombs that fire all over the building to blow it up. So we'll just do that with geometry nodes. Make a new node setup. Add a distribute points node. And now we'll control this density to control where the explosions are. But we'll just turn it down for now. That. And then this random seed changes where they are, which is perfect for what we need. So in here, add a scene time frame. So now you see the random seed changes every frame. We just have random dots. Okay, that's great. Now we'll add an instance, and we'll instance icospheres on them. And turn on the radius. You could randomize this, but I think it's different as is. Okay, a bunch of random icospheres. Add a set material. To set the proper material, I'll just use a material that has an emission shader cranked up to make them bright. Okay, now we've got all those, and they've replaced the building. These are instead of the building, so we need to add a let's see, what we need is a join geometry node. Join geometry. So when we join this and this, we get explosions on the building, which is good, but we want to be able to control them on and off. So to do that, we just add a switch, and when it is true, we will use the joined version, and when it is false, we will use just the building. So you can see true, false, true, false. Okay, now we'll just connect all this up to make it easy to access here in our modifier. So we'll drag this empty dot to anything we want to control. The density and switch. If you hit N to open this sidebar, you can then rename stuff. So instead of switch, we'll call this on. Okay, back in layout, we can now animate. Okay, so they're off, but if I turn on, there's bombs all the time. Too many. So we can adjust the density, and then control it so that set some keyframe. Set a keyframe to turn it on, and then a keyframe to turn it off again, and then on again, then on again, off again. So like that. In my original one here, you can see it goes on, off, on, off, on, in 2 little bursts, which you'll see better if we're looking like, there you go. I found like that was the most realistic, was when it was in a couple of bursts like that. So yes, so get a couple of bursts of explosions, and then we're on to the next step, which is the smoke. The smoke is one of the more challenging parts of this actually. But we don't have to simulate the smoke ourselves, at least not all. So for the imploding building smoke, here is how you do it. First, we're going to get a pre-made smoke simulation from JengaFX. So JengaFX makes tool for smoke and stuff. So, but if you go to jengafx.com and then in their downloads, free VDB assets, this will give you free pre-made smoke simulations. If you scroll down here, you've got building implosion. This is actually what gave me the idea originally. It looks such a nice little implosion. So download this. It gives you 116 frames of simulated smoke. Once you've downloaded it, you just go and unzip the file and all that. Then push Shift A, volume, import OpenVDB. Then go find the file, open it up, and change this to be sorted by name so it's in the right order. Hit A to select all and import. And it's going to be somewhere really random in the scene. Where is it? Oh, mine's going to be up there because that's where. Ah, I see it. Okay, so scale it way down. Move it into position for the collapsing building. And there we go. Okay, so we've got this nice exploding smoke coming out. But what we need to do is control when it's rendering. So in here, what you do is, so let's say you've got a few duplicates of it. I'm putting them here, but I would stack the duplicates up so it's all in one place. But this is just so we can watch. Okay, so on this first one, it starts right there on frame 1. Well, we want to change that. So to do that, you just go in here and you adjust the offset to a different number. So first of all, put the frames to just like infinity, a huge number, so that you won't worry about the end frame. Then you can change the number that it starts on. So yeah, change the offset, not the start. Offset's the one you want to change. And so right now it starts right there at the beginning. If I change this offset to that, it doesn't start till way down here, right on 169. So that offset is, you make it negative the number you want it to start on. So let's say I have this one start on, I'll put it on 70. Okay, so on frame 70, that one's gonna come in. Now I want this one to start on a different frame. So to do that, you gotta go in here and they're sharing the same data, so you gotta duplicate it. Click this button, new data, then change the offset. Let's say I want to start this one a little later. I'll change that one to 160. So that one doesn't start till then. And now the problem is you'll see that when it runs out, the smoke totally just vanishes, like right there. Right, it disappears. And that is no good. So we're gonna look at materials that are gonna solve that for us. So you'd stack up a few of these, configure their offsets so they all kind of play in an order. And then it looks like a big collapsing building. Over here in shading, I'll just use Eevee to look at the smoke. And let's see. Click one of these. Add a new material, and by default, since it's a volume, it's going to give it a volume material, which is perfect. That's what you want. So you've got a few controls here: density, and all these other stuff. But all these are for fire, so you only need to worry about the density and the color. You can customize the color a little bit; it'll look nicer in cycles. But it will also take forever to render. Okay, so the density controls how visible it is, how solid it appears. I'm going to go back to Eevee for the sake of demonstration. Gone. It's there. It's gone. So to make them fade out right before it disappears. Step to 1 frame at a time. Okay, right there it disappears. So right there, I'm gonna keyframe the density to be 0. Now I'm gonna go back a bunch of frames, maybe right here, and keyframe the density at 1. To keyframe it, you just type in a number, hover over it with your mouse, and then press I. So now as you watch this go, you'll see fades away into nothingness. That's why there's a glitch in my final render, is I think I messed up some of that animation. But okay, so now you can make them disappear. You've got smoke, and you've got a falling building. You got rubble. So what's next? Smoke trails. As the building falls, it should leave some trails of smoke through the air. And a quick note is, if you want to make this one fade out as well, you're going to need to make it duplicate the material before you animate it. If they share the same material, they both fade out at the same time. Make sure each new one has a new material as well. Okay, next up is smoke trails. This building needs to leave trails through the air as it falls. That will help it look realistic, like it's trailing down dust that is from explosions. So to do that, we're going to make some smoke emitters on the object and then simulate the smoke. First thing to do is add a domain to simulate smoke in. Once again, my keeper's in the wrong place. Okay, just make a cube covering most of the space where the smoke will be, and that'll be your smoke domain. Click in physics here, click fluid, and change it from none to domain. And in resolution, you want 128. That's what I used. I'm sure there's a lot of other things you can do. Also, scroll down here and you want to turn down buoyancy and heat to 0, which will make sure the smoke is kind of hangs in the air like dust and falls more downward. You can always turn this back up though if it's falling too quickly. So first step now is to add a plane, which once again is going to be in the wrong place. I should fix that. Shift S, cursor to origin. Okay, and down to edit mode. This plane is where smoke is going to come out of on the building. So scale it and position it and make it small. You want these trails to be tiny. So I want some trails coming out of the top here. So I'm going to put an emitter there. I'm just duplicating these planes in edit mode. It's all in one object still. I'm going to make it a little bigger on this corner and a little smaller right here. And I also want some to come out of like the windows where it looks like they got blasted from the little explosions earlier. So I'll rotate that. And you can make as many of these as you like. And stick them inside the mesh a little bit, that's good. Okay, and now on these we'll click fluid and pick flow. Change it to smoke, inflow. And turn on initial velocity. Okay, and that's really it. There's not much more to this simulation. You play. Wait a minute. The building starts. Oh, I need to parent that to the building. Control P, object, keep transform. And we should see as the building moves down, it should leave trails of smoke up in the air. And those are perfect. You can put on a lot more on the windows. You may need to tweak the positions of some of these to get the look you want. You make them smaller even. But that is looking great. So the next thing to do is we don't want them to be emitting until the building starts falling, like right here. So the bombs go off and then it should, right when the bombs go off, I want the smoke to start. So right around frame 50. So just hit I, turn on use flow. I keyframes it. So now as the keyframe use flow is on, go back a frame, turn it off and hit I to keyframe that. So now there will be nothing and then they will turn on. And then once you have the simulation the way you like it, you need to click the domain, go to this setting, physics setting, and bake it. Change it to all, click bake, and it'll bake it and store the whole simulation, so you've got it for, you don't have to keep resimulating. Okay, and then for that simulation, let's go, do I see it? Oh, I need to bake it. Bake. Give that a second. Okay, I'm canceling that, that's plenty. I can show you. Now we need to set a material for it, so just select the domain, go to shading, and select the domain, and then new material, and delete that, get a principled volume, and adjust the density to taste. It's not showing up super well in Eevee, but this will be fine in cycles. It'll be a nice thin smoke, but you can make it super dense if you want that look. Okay, so now you've got smoke trails, rubble, explosions, implosion dust down at the bottom from those other simulations, and then we've even got displacement to destroy the building. The final thing to do is really set up the rest of the city. So to build the rest of the city, and I don't actually need these, so I'm going to do it. Okay, to build the rest of your city, just repeat the process. This same building, model another one. Model another one that's similar but different. I modeled 3 different buildings and then duplicated them everywhere to make a city. You can see right here I just modeled, this is my main building, but I used a duplicate of it there, there, and there, and there. Then I modeled a little shorter building and used that one 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 10 times. You see, you make some lower and some taller, and it looks like they're different buildings. Make sure you rotate them a bunch. Made a 3rd building and only used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of those, or 8. Actually, a ton of them. So yeah, I just duplicated that chunk and then duplicated this chunk over there, this chunk over there, and had a nice selection of city. I positioned my camera up in the sky, way up there, and used a long focal length setting on the camera so that it kind of gives this orthographic isometric view of the city. See, I've got the focal length turned up to like 128. That gives it this great zoomed in view on the city. And then I just used the camera Shakeify add-on, which you can download to provide this nice camera shake, which is perfect. And then pretty much ready to go here, but you do need some ground. So for the ground here, just grab a satellite picture of a city and stick it on the ground and try to line up some of the buildings with actual buildings. And you see right in here where we're going to be seeing it. You're not going to see much of this on the camera, it'll be kind of in the distance, but right here I made sure to put some actual street and stuff between them. So when you look, you see, that looks like the ground in a city. When it's covered up by smoke, you won't see it. So it's good. So after that, final step is to light it. And to use that, for lighting, I've just gone and done a sky texture. And then I just used the camera Shakeify add-on to provide this nice camera shake, which is perfect. And then I just used the camera Shakeify add-on to provide this nice camera shake, which is perfect. And then I just used the camera Shakeify add-on to provide this nice camera shake, which is perfect. And then I just used the camera Shakeify add-on to provide this nice camera shake, which is perfect. And then I just used the camera Shakeify add-on to provide this nice camera shake, which is perfect. And then I just used the camera Shakeify add-on to provide this nice camera shake, which is perfect. And then I just used the camera Shakeify add-on to provide this nice camera shake, which is perfect. And then I just used the camera Shakeify add-on to provide this nice camera shake, which is perfect. And then I just used the camera Shakeify add-on to provide this nice camera shake, which is perfect. And then I just used the camera Shakeify add-on to provide this nice camera shake, which is perfect. And then which just lets us simulate sunlight, and it's usually really bright. But in this case, I'm going to block that out a bit. I'm going to block out that brightness with a volume cube, which is a giant cube over the whole scene with a volume scatter shader. See right here, he's got a volume scatter. And you turn the density way down, and this provides fog over your whole scene. Then other than that, I put a plane up in the sky, just a normal plane, and that's putting a shadow over the whole city, which kind of helps with the look somehow. It blocks a bit of the light. If the plane isn't there, then the city is too bright, so this shadow means a lot of this is just bounce lighting. It probably increases render time, but it also looks really nice. It's almost like it's a little bit clouded or dusty in the city. Okay, and then one last step is I added a window in mine. And the window is really simple. It's got, you can see it's just a hole cut in here with a couple of extruded details, extruded window frame, and very simple curtains. And it just has a plain black shader on it. That's it, you have officially destroyed a building. You can do this to every building in the city if you want to be that way, or you can just not.